Today I'm going to talk about cruising with disabilities. Everything from being in a wheelchair, being fully disabled, to scooters, to walkers, to possibly canes, blind, on dialysis, um, on a CPAP machine, or oxygen, or a special diet like diabetes, or even diets, even other diets. So stick around. Now, first off, if you're going to book a cruise and you have one disabilities, you need to inform the cruise line as soon as you book your cruise, or while you're booking your cruise. Let them know, because there are special accommodations and some of them are first come first serve, and you have to let them know a few things and be known of a few things before you can go on your cruise. For example, if you're going to be cruising with the mobility scooter, there are some things you need to know. Most scooters are all right, but some scooters have different types of batteries that may not be allowed on the cruise. Also, the width of your scooter may come into play. And if your scooter, they will measure your scooter before you get on the ship. And if your scooter is too wide, you will not be allowed on the ship and you will not be given a refund. So you need to let them know the width of your scooter. And if it's too wide, you're going to need to make some arrangements for a different scooter, and you can't do it the day of the cruise. You have to do that ahead of time and as soon as you can before the cruise. I would say a month or so out. You need to get that information to them. There are scooters that you can rent from vendors that work with the cruise line. Each cruise line may work with different vendors. Some vendors may work with multiple cruise lines, and some cruise lines may have their own personal vendors that they work with. So you need to work with them. They will have the scooter waiting for you on the ship. Most likely it will be in your cabin. If you need wheelchair assistance, they will give you wheelchair assistance going up to from the ground level up to your ship, but they only take you to the front lobby, which is usually atrium on most ships, and some of the newer ships it may be something different. But they're going to bring you to the main gathering area where you get on the ship, and they will sit you down, and then whoever's with you may have to go to your room and get your scooter and bring it out to you. But keep that in mind too. If you rent a scooter, that it won't be waiting for you on the dock. It'll be waiting for you on the ship. The width of the doorway is very important for the scooter that you have. Your scooter or wheelchair, or even walker for that matter, cannot be stored in the hallway for safety reasons. So it has to be stored in your room. It has to be charged in your room. There's nowhere else for you to charge, or are you allowed to charge it anywhere else on the ship? You may ask somebody and they may give you permission, but as a rule, I would just consider that you're only going to charge your scooter in your room. Now, if you rent one from the vendor who rents scooters, and I hear they're really good scooters, the other type of scooter, you need a scooter, if you're bringing your own, it needs to be collapsible, or it should be collapsible and foldable or whatever, so that it can be stored out of the way. Some of them will have a battery that can come off, and you can set the battery on a shelf and charge it while you're sleeping. But those are things you need to take in consideration when you're cruising, and if you're bringing your own scooter, the width of the scooter. They do have rooms with bigger doors, but they need to know that before you really book your room, when you're booking your room, and not the day of getting on the cruise. One thing you have to do if you have a disability is to do your homework and to let Carnival know all your needs long before your cruise day comes. Because, except for a diet you can wait until you get on the ship and tell the person in the dining room who runs that dining room what your dietary needs are. You can do that, but you can tell them ahead of time too, and then they're prepared. Your sailing sergeant card will go on their computer. Oh, this guy's on this kind of diet. Let's make sure you know. And that doesn't only include medical reasons. If you're a Muslim or a Jew and you can't eat pork, you can't eat shellfish, you can let them know too, so they make sure you get a menu that has things other than those things. If you're a vegan, vegetarian, over-lactic vegetarian, whatever, if you let the crews know, they can prepare for you ahead of time. And my wife was on a certain diet, and she would always just go to the dining room first day before dinner, and she would let them know the first day they probably wouldn't have a menu for her. They have special menus for people with special dietary needs. So let them know. You have to let the cruise industry know of any disability you have, really, so they can be of assistance. Perhaps you have one of these bad boys. A lot of people do. I see them on the cruises all the time. Now, I've taken 2 cruises with my mother, and she uses a walker most of the time. I don't think she took the walker with us when we went on excursions, because she doesn't need it continuously, but she does need the walker. So, a walker is a little bit easier because you can use a regular cabin. But you might need a cabin that has a special bathroom with rails and with the special seats I'll go into a little bit later in this video. Now, as far as mobility goes, there are 4 different types of rooms. The first one being full accessibility. This is a full access room, gives you room to turn your wheelchair around and get all over the entire room. The second one is single side mobility. This one gives you the ability to get on one side of the bed, or if you got split 2 twin beds, to get between both beds. Third one is ambulatory access. This one may be the standard size, but have a mobility bathroom or slightly wider. And the fourth one would be a standard room that just anybody would use. A standard room will vary in size and shape and depending on what ship you're on. Now, if you have a wheelchair or a scooter or a walker, you're not allowed to store those in the hallway. They have to be kept in your room. When you're around about the ship, maybe you're in the casino, you're out at the pool, you're involved in some activity somewhere where you're sitting down, your device has to be stored in such a way that it's not impeding any traffic for emergency reasons. Obviously, you can't be blocking any way that people need to walk or hurry out. So off in some corner somewhere, probably have to ask, hey, where can I store this? And they'll be glad to tell you. That's something you need to know. And again, I'm going to say this again, that you need to let the cruise line know when you're booking your cabin, at the time you're booking your cruise, to let them know your disability needs. Now, I don't know that much about scooters. I know a lot of people have them. I see them on the cruise. The ones that you get from the vendor are guaranteed they're going to fit through your door and all that kind of stuff. Is a much better option. And it has to fit through your door because you can't store it in the hallway. They don't have anywhere to store it, so you need to store it. That is important. Ask them the width. And even when you're going through the vendor, say, I'm going to be in, let them know I'm going to be renting a scooter. And then when you're booking, ask them for the vendor. But let them know too, so that they're going to book you a room that has a wide enough door. Some of these doors can be pretty narrow, and if you can't get your scooter through the door, that's on you. I hate to say that, but it is. Walkers usually fold up pretty easily. Wheelchairs usually fold up, so they'll go into your room. I can't stress enough, they're not going to allow you to keep them out in the hallway. People put their dirty dishes out in the hallway, but you can't put your scooter out in the hallway. That's just the way it is. This here is a standard bathroom. They're pretty small. So if you're going to need special needs for your bathroom, you need to let them know so that you can get a handicapped accessible bathroom with seats and rails. Now, getting off and on the porch could be difficult if you have disabilities. They will have people to help you. But you have to know that in some ports, these ramps can vary from port to port and from tide, low tide, high tide, or whatever. It can be a pretty steep, and coming back up, maybe if you have a weaker scooter, it may not be able to make that journey. You may have to have people help you get up, and other passengers are going to want to get on, so they'll help you get up. They also have an attendant will help you. When you're coming down, they'll have someone behind you and in front of you with a reflective vest that will help you off the ship. Some ports are more handicapped accessible than others. Some ports are old cities. They have real skinny sidewalks. You can't get your wheelchair onto the sidewalk. Many of these shops, you can't get your wheelchair or scooter into the shop. That's something you have to know and just be prepared for. You may not, and other ports are very, very easy. Some of them have cobblestone streets, and those aren't as easy to maneuver. The scooter as well. I don't know exactly what to tell you. You just got to find out for yourself, I guess, part of the adventure. I'm sure you'll be able to get around. Usually near the entry where the port is, they usually have a lot of shops that sell souvenirs and booths and stuff. So, even NASA's building a complex, and it may be built by now, where you can go shopping and it's totally handicapped accessible. A lot of these ports are in third world countries, and they don't have the standards of like an American city where you have a ramp on the edge on the intersection sidewalk kind of thing. So you got to keep that in mind when you're going to port. Even if you're in a walker, you may have some steps to get up to get onto the sidewalk, and even maneuvering a walker in some of these small sidewalks might be difficult. Nassau, I know certain areas of town they're very wide sidewalks, but some areas, they don't even hardly have sidewalks at all, and you don't want to be running your scooter out in the street. That's something to take in consideration. The other part of getting to a port, this is a tender, and a tender can be difficult if you have mobility issues to get in and out of. The captain will determine what disability level will be able to get on this ship, because they're not allowed to assist you onto the ship. You have to be able to get on these tenders by yourself, because in case of an emergency, that you have to be able to fend for yourself kind of issue. But in general, a lot of tenders aren't that hard to get onto. My mom's got on them with walkers. So, I don't know about people with scooters. Some of them do. It depends on the port. Sometimes the cruise line owns the tenders. Sometimes the port owns the tenders. And sometimes in third world countries, like when I was in Belize, you had to step down into that tender. I don't know if somebody with disability would be able to get in it or not. Or maybe they had different tenders, so maybe they had ones for people with disabilities to be able to use. I don't really know. Some of them you'll be able to just ride in the back of the tender. So that all depends. But that is something to take in consideration. Perhaps you may have to book a cruise that doesn't have any tenders, that doesn't have ports that are tendered. What if you're blind, or you're traveling with somebody who is blind? You've heard in the news a few people have been denied boarding. Now, all the doors have Braille. All the elevators are Braille. And so they can assist you to a certain extent, but usually if you travel with someone, if the person you're traveling with is blind, then you need to step up and help your family member or friend that you're traveling with. Like in the buffet, yes, the people working in the buffet would load your tray or your plate with whatever you want. This is if you're in disability or if you're blind or whatever, in a scooter, a wheelchair. They will assist you, but if you have somebody with you who knows you and knows what portions you like, how much you want of certain things, it's better for them to do it than to have the staff do it. But you can have the staff load your plates for you. Um, Now, riding the elevator is a big part of being on a cruise ship because, you go up and down different things. Casinos on one floor, your staterooms on a floor, the Lido deck, the spa deck, different activities you're going to. You're going to have to ride the elevator. Now, the one problem that a lot of people with mobility issues have is on the day that you get on the cruise ship, because everybody is well, not blinded, but they're narrow focused because they're excited about the cruise. They lose their situational awareness, and when you go to get on the elevators, one guy said that it took him 20 minutes to get on an elevator. And these elevators are pretty quick. They're pretty frequent, but everybody rushes the elevator. Right, elevator comes, they start going towards it. There's like 3 elevators on one side and 3 on the other, depending on where you're at. Some of them may be 4. On some cruise lines, they do have, I know NCL has designated disability elevators. So they have elevators that are just for people with disabilities and those who are traveling with them. So you're not supposed to ride them if you don't have disabilities. I'm sure people do anyway. You know how people are. But you have, you have to just rush the elevator. Really, that's what I was told by a guy on a scooter, that you just have to like run towards the elevator with your scooter and just, if you're not aggressive when it's a crowded time. Now, once the ship gets underway, most of the time it's pretty easy to get an elevator. Most of the time, it's just those few times when everybody's rushed to one. Maybe when you're first getting into port, but you don't have to leave the ship right away. So, but getting on the ship, the day that you board the ship, trying to get up to the Lido deck or up to your room, can be a difficult thing. Be prepared for that. The staff is there just to tell you what's room. The buffet is on deck 11. The casino's not open, but not everything's opened yet. Most people head up the Lido deck, go to the pool, go to the welcome aboard party, or they're going to go to the buffet. That's where a lot of people head as soon as they get on the ship. I usually head to a bar and have my first beer, and then I get something to eat. But other people do it differently. But getting on the elevator from that main lobby deck, is something that you're gonna have to deal with. Hopefully, somebody will see you and hold the door. Hey, let this person in. Hopefully that happens. Or the persons you're with say, hey, this lady's been waiting for a while, or this guy's been waiting for a while on the scooter. Can he please get on this elevator? Hopefully that works. I think that's a shame that somebody with disability should even have to wait for an elevator. I mean, why has society got to this point? I don't know. I thought we've gone past that where we're more aware of other people, but I have seen it and I've heard other people say about it. Now, talking about service dogs can stir up some arguments amongst other cruise people. Now, blind people, seeing eye dogs is no problem. Some of these other ones, different cruises, may or may not allow the therapy type dogs, emotional support dogs, and things like that, because they're not approved by disabilities. I don't know what you call it, but dogs have to be trained dogs. They have to be dogs that have gone through training. They're specifically trained for that task that they're there to do. Um, and I know that there's a lot of contention among other cruisers about it. When you hear these people with emotional support dogs and other passengers are not happy with that, probably because they're jealous and they had to leave their dog at home. Um, but it's up to the cruise ship whether um, disability dogs are allowed and not me or you. So we don't get to make that determination. The cruise lines, you have to let them know you're bringing a dog, uh, and you need to bring the paperwork with the dog. I'm not sure with the CNI dog they're going to know you're blind, you got a dog. They're just going to know. But with some of these other dogs, they're going to probably need some verification. This one I know a lot about because me and my wife both are on CPAP machines. Now, we bring our own extension cord. It's got to be long enough to go across the room because in a lot of cabins, especially in the older ships, you have to plug in across the hall, across the not hallway, but across the room from where the head of the bed is, where your CPAP machine will be. Me and my wife have a CPAP machine on each side of the bed, so we run an extension cord that runs across the room, and it has 3 outlets on it. We use 2. That way we have an outlet open if we need to charge your cell phone overnight. So that's something if you're on a CPAP, you may want to bring us. They will provide you with an extension cord. You got to let them know in advance, and they will provide you with an extension cord if need be. I don't, because me and my wife both have a machine. We don't want 2 different extension cords, so we just want one that will hook both of our machines up. And they do not allow a surge protectors. You know, the type that come with multiple ports on it and stuff, and it has a little button at the top. So a lot of them will have a fuse on them. They don't allow those. So you bring one, they'll take it from you, and then you'll be stuck without an extension cord. Maybe if they have any, they might bring you one. But do not bring a surge protector because those are one of the items that are not allowed. Electronics, you really got to be careful. You're not allowed hair dryers, and that. And let's go into one other mobility thing is a Segway. Now, Segways are not allowed on board the ship, but evidently on some cruise lines you're allowed to bring a Segway to use in the ports. I don't know how that goes. I would ask them before you bring it, make sure. Some people have mobility issues and use a Segway. I got a Segway one time. I busted my ass. So I don't know how they're considered a mobility thing, but maybe they are. Those hoverboard things that aren't really hoverboards, they're just Segways without the handle. Those aren't allowed. Primarily because they catch on fire, but they're not going to want you charging up in your room for sure. If you're on medication, you need to remember your medication and take enough for your cruise. Now, you're not supposed to travel with your medication out of the prescription bottle, but I put my medication in those little tabs where you open one each day. I got 2 of them, one for morning, one for night. So I take medication with breakfast. I take medication with dinner every day. I'm on about 3 different daily medications, including baby aspirin, but that's over the counter stuff. Doesn't matter. But always got to bring enough for your cruise and for your travel back home and your travel to the cruise. Those are things you need to be considerate of, and that's all I can say about that. That's something you need to be responsible yourself. But if you have injectables and they need to be kept cool, maybe you need to bring a container, they recommend. Now, me and my wife are both on Truicity, and we take it once a week. Every Saturday we take Truicity. That's the day we decided to do it, and that's when we do it once a week. So if we're out on a cruise on a Saturday, we're going to have those with us. Now, I keep mine in the refrigerator. A lot of people don't recommend. They want you to get those refrigeration little handheld plug-in units that keep your medicine cool at the right temperature. I haven't had a problem, and I've been on Truicity for 2 years now, if longer than that. and about 2 years. And I've never used a cooler for it. I've always kept them in my refrigerator. So when I go on a cruise, I keep them in the refrigerator. Now, some rooms, I don't know anymore, but some rooms may not have a refrigerator. So I always ask when we book the cruise, need a room with a refrigerator. It's just because we need to keep that medicine in there. So that's something that that you need to address when you take a cruise. If you're taking injectables that need to be kept at a certain temp or keep cool, um, bring your own. I don't think they provide them. Maybe some of the cruise lines do. I don't know. You could always ask. It never hurts to ask. But that's what I do. I keep mine just in the refrigerator. Also, keep in mind at some ports you're going to have quite a bit of travel to go to get to wherever. Meaning sometimes your ship may be way out of a dock and you got to walk quite a ways to get there. Cozumel can be quite a journey depending on which port your ship pulls into. There's multiple ports in Cozumel now. There used to be just one big one. Now there's several. One time when it got so popular, they had people tendering from into Cozumel and some of the cruise lines. But now they pretty much all in ports. They got at least three big ports that'll handle multiple ships. But there is quite a walkway. Now someone will offer a little shuttle like a golf cart that's been converted to carry people, and they do it for a tip or something, or someone might have a charge. Um, but keep that in mind that the ship you may not have to walk as far because all you're really doing is walk into the elevator, then walk into wherever. I don't think you really walk that much on a cruise ship. Some people say you do. My mother-in-law complained about it. She didn't bring her walker. She should have. My mom didn't ever complain about the distances at all. And when she left the ship, she didn't bring her walker with her. Um, that's all on you, and that your own limits. Um, what you need to do is when you're booking a cruise, do your homework. I hear different things. I heard NCL is one of the best cruise lines for people with disabilities. Carnival has really stepped up in the last few years. Older ships and newer ships. If you're on older ships, the hallways are a lot narrower. And if you pass up your room, I'm not in a wheelchair or anything. I pass up my room a couple times when I first start my cruise because it's like all the hallway all looks the same. Going down there, every door looks the same, and then you pass your door like, oh shit, you got to turn back around, go to your room. If you're in a mobility scooter or wheelchair, you may have to go all the way out to the end of the hall or all the way to the next elevator bank, turn your wheelchair around, come back um, to get to your room. Uh, that's not a big deal, but that's something you need to know. On some of the newer ships, you'll be able to turn your wheelchair around the hallway, I think. I don't know. I haven't been on the really new ships. Um, but I know like the Valor, it's the hallway in the Valor is bigger than the hallway on the Paradise. So, you know, um, there is a lot of homework you need to do. I do homework for every cruise anyway. I'm looking for where am I going to park? Where am I going to do this? Do I need to stay in a hotel the night before? A lot of people recommend getting there the night before. I just go to cruises that are in driving distance from my house, so I have to deal with the airlines. I know I can just drive there, get up early. Sometimes 3 in the morning I'm getting up and getting out of the house by 4 and down the road and leave enough time to stop for breakfast and lunch and driving all day. I don't mind it. You're not driving all day. You've got to get there by 11 o'clock usually is when I want to get there, and then get on the cruise by noon. I hope sometimes 1 o'clock. I've been on a cruise one time. The earliest I got on a cruise was like 10:45. We booked a boarding time at 10. It took 45 minutes to get from outside where you line up to go through all the security checks. Now, when you go through the security on the ship, now they may have you get off of your scooter or to get through the metal detectors, and then you got to go through the metal detectors, then come back and get your scooter and go around the outside of the metal detectors. Now, sometimes they scan your luggage on the ship. When you get on the ship, that's where you scan everything. On some of them, you do it in the terminal. It all depends on the terminal and the ship, really. Um, and then when you're coming back from your port, you're going to have to go through another security point. It's not as strict. They just want to x-ray your luggage and have you walk through a metal detector. But those things may be a little inconvenient for you if you're in a wheelchair, scooter, or a walker. But uh, you know, I think my mom took her walker on one of our things where we went off the ship. I think at Cozumel, because there's such a long distance to walk from the ship till you actually get into Cozumel. Because we had to go outside the gate. There's that gated area where they have all the little gift shops, and you don't have to go into Mexico really and worry about pickpockets and all the criminal activity, I guess. But we had to go out there to catch our bus for our excursion, so my mom took her walker. Well, she just passed her walker, and the person grabbed the walker and put it in front of the metal detector, and she just walked through the metal detector, and that easy. But if you're in a wheelchair, it's a little bit harder. Maybe somebody may ask to help you out, and it all depends on each situation. But you know, you have to deal with that too. So there are some issues if you have disabilities on a cruise, but those disabilities can be now if you're on dialysis, they do have cruises for people on dialysis, so that is something to keep in mind. I don't know much more about it than that, but I do know that they have a dialysis cruises going on. So you know, if you have dialysis, you can still go on cruises, which is cool. Lessened by knowledge and by research, which is something you have to do. Now, there's a channel called Cruising with Wheels, and it's a couple, and they've been around for a few years. They've got quite a few videos. They update stuff. They talk about their experiences. One of the people is in a wheelchair, and they're avid cruisers, so they're a good resource to go to learn about cruising with disabilities.